Okay, so I didn't find many videos on this, so I'm gonna make a video for you. Okay, so this particular model is a Hisun 700. They're almost identical to the 660 Rhinos. They are not identical, but they're very close, like about 90%. Anyway, I needed a rear diff. I couldn't get the Hisun one, so I ordered the 660 Rhino. So for the 700 Hisun guys or the 500, if you have to put a 660 Rhino diff in, you'll notice that the holes are smaller. At least on my machine, I had bigger bolt holes here. So all I did was I drilled these holes out. As it turns out, I wasn't paying attention, but only one of my bolts was bigger, it seems. So I got a big one there and a small one there. So you really only have to drill out the front hole, but whatever. Easy to do. I did it in a drill press. I think it's a, what is it? It's a 15-30 seconds drill bit. That's what you need. Okay. Now the easy way to take this all apart, now take your box off, okay? There's my box right there. Take your box off first. It's just 2 pins and a couple wires. Just take it off. So much easier to get at everything. Of course, you got to take your exhaust off and everything else. I'm pretty sure the exhaust has to come out. Regardless, when you get to the diff, or even before you get there, a lot of people, they take the nuts off the axles and stuff, right? They take the nut off of like there. You need big wrench, big tools. This time I tried it this way. All I did was took these 2 bolts out right here for the A-arms. I took out the top one and the bottom one, and I took off the shock mount. So that's only 3 bolts, and then boom, everything slides off. You don't have to take the wheels off or nothing, and it just pops out in one piece. There you can see my wheels and my CV axles. Just makes it super fast, super easy. You're gonna want to take the bottom of the skid plate off here. You gotta take that off, and then what else do you have to do? That's just 2 bolts basically. This one and this one back here, and then you pull it out. Now on the Rhinos, between here, let's see if you can focus here, between the spline and this coupler piece that the brake disc bolts to, on the Hisun 700, they just have, it's just metal. There's no nothing. But on the Rhino 660, I noticed that they use a rubber bumper, and I first noticed that like the play in between here, like, I don't know if you can see this, but now there's hardly any at all. There's just a little bit. Before, you could hear it clunk, 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 clunk back and forth. So I went ahead and I ordered the Rhino rubber piece, and I'm installing it in my Hisun. Now I haven't tried it yet. I don't see why it won't work. Instead of metal on metal, it's got a cushion there. So just make sure, if it's the Rhino, guys, buy that piece brand new and put it in, unless yours is 100%. Otherwise, make sure you put it in there. Okay, I'll put a link in the description for this rear differential. This is a niche, or a niche, however you want to say it. It's an aftermarket diff. They seem to be pretty good quality. I guess time will tell, but they got pretty good reviews. It's crazy expensive to try and rebuild these diffs. Like when you buy the actual bearings from Yamaha, it's just so expensive. So that's why I went this route. Okay, other than that, I have my brake disc off. I tried putting, I left this shaft and I tried putting the diff in that way. I couldn't do it. It just wouldn't go. So then what I did was I took the disc off, and I probably didn't have to do that. I tried that, it still wouldn't go. So in the end, what I did was I just took the whole drive shaft out, and there's a spring on that end, on the engine side, don't lose it. And I pulled the shaft out. I put this shaft inside the diff coupler and boss, whatever you want to call it, splined area. And then I was able to put everything up into place, and I was able to pull it back and sneak it in there much, much easier. So I probably didn't have to take off the disc, but whatever. The other thing you want to do is when you have this all apart, the Rhinos were famous for making a horrendous noise on the brakes, on the rear brakes. What I did was I got to clean this again because it's got grease on it. Just use brake cleaner or whatever. What I did was I took some 80 grit or 40 grit or whatever it was, like real coarse sandpaper, and I just sanded both sides of this. I put new brake pads in the caliper, and then what you want to do is you want to get some high temperature silicone grease, brake grease, high temperature silicone brake grease, and just put it just a little bit on the back of the pads and anywhere it slides, and then take your pins out of that caliper and just buff them up on a wire wheel or do it by hand with a brush, wire brush, whatever you gotta do. Make sure they're spotless, then grease them up with that high temp silicone grease so that the caliper can move back and forth. You'll see you'll have zero noise after. I did that and this thing is awesome now. The other thing I did was I bled the brakes. I put .4 brake fluid in, and I bled all this caliper plus the two front ones, and I flushed all the brake fluid out, put all new brake fluid in. This thing stops awesome. It's never been this good. So that's just something you'll want to do. And then the other big thing is a lot of guys just go and slap these drive shafts in and call it a day. What I do is I've got this, I have this grease for you. I've got this Maxima grease. I'll put a link in the description of the video. Just buy this off Amazon. It'll last you a long time. I've been using this for quite a while now, and that's all I've used. It's waterproof grease. I'm putting it on all the splines, and then put it on this spline, and you put it on the one up there. And then that way you just have no issues. If you're into like mud bogging and stuff, you're not gonna tear your splines out because everything rusted up, right? So that's all you gotta do. Of course, don't use this gear oil that these things come with. These aftermarket rear diffs. This is what I use for gear oil. But use a good high quality gear oil, and I would actually put some gear oil in. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put some gear oil in. I'm gonna spin the tires a bunch of times. I'm gonna drain it, and then I'm gonna put some more in. And then I know I've got this stuff in there. Okay, then I'm gonna take it for a drive, and not a very long drive, just for maybe 10 minutes. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna drain it, and I'm gonna put stuff in again. Do that a couple of times, just gets everything out of there. For the Hisun guys, for the Chinese clone guys, the speed sensor seems to bolt right in there. So you take this plug out, and this is where the speed sensor, this is where we get our speed signal from for a speedometer. And it seems to go right in there. So other than that, that's it. But that's just the easier way. Instead of taking the big nut off and taking all 4 screws off or nuts off for your wheels, this way you just take this one off, and the shock mount. And then when you go to put it all back together, it just goes right in there. So hopefully that helps people that haven't done this job before. For the Hisun guys, if you can just buy the actual Hisun rear differential, it'll have all the proper holes. Like I say, if for whatever reason you can't get it, these are very readily available, the 60 Rhinos. You're gonna have to probably only drill 1 hole. I drilled 2. It is super tight, this thing. Like, it's not, I don't even have it bolted up, and there's no play at all. So this thing's gonna be fine. I'm gonna put an extra brace on this one as well. I'm gonna put an extra brace. I'm gonna custom build, because the Rhinos were famous for breaking these mounts. So they have these aftermarket kits that just brace everything in there better. But there you go, folks. Hopefully that helps out. Over and out.